Video is brought to you by Incogni. All right, I want to run you guys through some updates on Trump's anonymous donor friend that is apparently keeping the military open through secret donations. Because over the past few days, we've heard a lot of rumblings, $130 million donated towards our troops, but we didn't know who it came from. It was from some unnamed billionaire who Donald Trump kept saying was a friend. And that actually is very, very scary because people were pointing out immediately, hey, there's an authority that says donors over the amount of $10,000 need to be vetted for conflicts of interest. It's hard to do that if the donor is anonymous. Or is the donor known to the Pentagon and they agreed to withhold their identity? There were a lot of very valid questions. How can an anonymous donor help keep the military open, and what strings are attached there? That's the big conflict of interest. What strings are attached? Because on paper, the Pentagon used what's called the, quote, General Gift Acceptance Authority. So it's a statute that hasn't been invoked in a while that allows the Pentagon to accept large gifts, large donations from singular individuals, which wouldn't normally be allowed. So what I'm getting towards here is this is highly irregular, highly unusual, and what strings are attached. Well, today we learned who the donor was. We learned a little bit more, but there's also a lot more questions that are being raised on a daily basis. Okay, so Ben Meiselas points out, I have a crazy idea. Hear me out. The anonymous donor who Trump claims gave $130 million to the military can pay their fair share in taxes and help fund the healthcare of Americans. Why is money from the top not being redistributed towards Americans who are vulnerable? It's being redistributed towards a government shutdown that Donald Trump created. But then anonymously says, I don't think it's heartwarming and cute that an anonymous donor is funding our military because the government is shut down. I want to know who it is. Donors pay politicians to influence politics. You're naive if you don't consider this a lobbying effort of some sort. A lot of Americans, or at least Americans on the right, tend to think that Trump is immune from being bought off. But the reality is Trump is legit the most bought off person in American history. Anybody can throw money his way. He's doing deals with Middle Eastern countries right now and returning the U.S. into this pre-constitutional order in which he's the king and can just accept bribes and planes. It's all absurd. And that brings us on to what's going on today. Donald Trump was asked on Air Force One about the person who's donating $130 million. And they're trying to turn this into some American success patriotic story when this should scare everybody. Between what's going on with Palantir spying on many Americans, between ICE having a budget higher than most militaries in the world, and between this, it's not a good look for people who claim that Trump isn't an authoritarian. By the way, before I play this clip, make sure you subscribe to the Adam Mockler feed. We have an amazing debate show coming out tomorrow. Be there for episode 1 and check this out.
How did you manage to find somebody to pay for our troops during the shutdown?
He's a great gentleman. He's a great patriot. He's obviously a very substantial man. And he contributed $130 million toward the military in order to make up any difference. So he wanted to see the military get paid. So did I. And he's a wonderful man, and he doesn't want publicity. He doesn't, he'd prefer, I think, that his name not be mentioned, which is pretty unusual in the world I come from. And in the world of politics, you want your name mentioned. He doesn't. He's a great patriot. He really is. He put up $130 million in order to make sure that's a lot of money, in order to make sure that the military got paid. And he's a big supporter of mine.
Is it an American citizen?
It is, yeah. Great American citizen.
So listen to how secretive they're being. Is it an American citizen? And Trump is playing a game. Yep, he is an American citizen. It's guess who? Guess who is giving the Pentagon a general gift of $130 million that can then influence the military? And that's where the conflicts of interest begin to pile up when we read this story. Trump to use $130 million donation to help pay the troops. There's something called the Anti-Deficiency Act, which bars federal agencies from spending money that hasn't been appropriated by Congress. That's why Congress has the power of purse, because the entire point of the law in the process is to prevent presidents from running the government like their personal business. Donald Trump has run the government like his personal business this entire time, and when you replace congressional funding with private donations, you're effectively privatizing the military's paycheck. And that's the entire direction this is leading towards. The entire time when I'm talking about this being absurd and there being conflicts of interest, I want the headline at the very top. I want the main thing you remember to be that privatizing the military means the military would be under the control of Trump and perhaps whoever this donor is, and Stephen Miller, by the way, and maybe Pete Hegseth, but I don't think Stephen Miller would let Pete Hegseth play with his toy. So imagine the precedent that sets. What happens the next time some billionaire donor doesn't like the way Congress is handling foreign policy, so they just cut a check to the president and they have the troops on their side. This is crazy corruption. This opens the door for the military, the U.S. military, to be at the behest of singular donors. President Trump said that an anonymous private donor has given $130 million to the U.S. government to help pay troops during the government shutdown. It's not clear how far the donation would go towards covering the salaries of more than 1.3 million troops. That means each troop gets $100? What's the plan here other than just blatant corruption? Then we learned on Twitter today, breaking news, the anonymous donor who gave $130 million to fund U.S. troops during the federal shutdown is reportedly Tim Mellon, the same billionaire who gave $53 million to build Texas's private border wall. He's funded border enforcement, Trump super PACs, and now the military itself to try to gain influence. Private wealth replacing Congress is not a direction we should want to go. Ordinary citizens like you and I can't buy goodwill from the Pentagon. I can't buy goodwill from Trump because I don't have the millions of dollars necessary. But people who are billionaires can not only buy access to the president via crypto coin, but they can also buy access to the Pentagon and the military. It is getting absurd. Someone points out the anonymous $130 million donor has a whole chapter in his 2015 autobiography, a whole page on his Wikipedia, in which he calls SNAP benefits, WIC, which is the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children, and then he calls the Affordable Care Act slavery redux. So this rich dude is giving his money towards the military while he's calling, essentially, any social safety nets like the ACA or SNAP benefits, quote unquote, slavery. What kind of person is this? Mellon's self-published 2015 autobiography describes his political views. Notably, it calls the social safety net programs, quote, slavery redux, asserting that its beneficiaries are beholden to, quote, a new master, Uncle Sam. This is some batshit crazy stuff coming from the highest levels of the governments and the highest donors. Just keep in mind, while all of this is happening, Donald Trump is appointing election deniers to key positions, to the highest positions in the government. People like Mike Lindell and Mike Lindell's cronies are literally leading the election integrity of the government. That is scary. At the same time, the military seems to be getting privatized, and not enough people are talking about this. We will continue every single day to cover this, double down on the truth. All that I ask is that you subscribe below. This is not some neutral billionaire who is just charitable. Elon Musk was not some neutral billionaire. These are right-wing billionaires, sometimes far-right billionaires, donating massive amounts of money to give themselves an edge in the U.S. political system. We have to call this bullshit out. And really quickly, there is a difference between your data being online and your data being exposed online. I started noticing that I was exposed when I got texts and calls that weren't just annoying, they were hyper specific. I mean, it was calls from area codes from my hometown meant to trick me. You guys may have seen this, but people online are trying to steal and spread your personal information on a daily basis. The more info that spreads, the more vulnerable you become. That's why I use Incogni. They go after those exact data brokers and scammers on your behalf, and they legally, without any sort of effort on your behalf, say, hey, you have got to stop sending out this person's information. They send out removal quests on your behalf, and then they log progress and tell you how many removals you've seen. I've seen dozens personally, and they even added this custom removal tool in their unlimited and family unlimited plans. So if you spot your info on some website, you can directly ask them to take it down. Go to incogni.com/Mockler and use code Mockler to get 60% off your annual plan. Again, 60% off your annual plan if you click the top link in the description or go to incogni.com/Mockler. Thank you.
I don't know what to do, Sebastian. I'm trying my best.